There is a prison most people never escape. Not because the bars are strong, but because they cannot see them. The prisoner sits perfectly still while chaos erupts around him. He breathes while others panic. He waits while others attack. And when he moves, the fight is already over. This is the story of how one man mastered something most people never learn in their entire lives: complete control over his own mind. Miyamoto Musashi. History remembers him as Japan's greatest swordsman. He fought more than 60 confrontations where a single mistake meant immediate end. But here is what most people do not understand. Musashi's greatest weapon was not the blade in his hand. It was the stillness in his mind. While opponents tore themselves apart with rage and fear before the first strike, Musashi remained absolutely calm, and that calmness made him unstoppable. You are about to discover the 4 mental principles that made Musashi unbeatable, and here is what makes this truly remarkable. These same strategies work perfectly in modern life. Whether you are facing an aggressive boss, navigating family conflict, or dealing with someone trying to provoke you online, the person who controls their mind controls the outcome, always. Let me show you something. Picture a duel to the end. 2 fighters face each other. One is screaming, muscles tense, veins bulging in his neck. The other stands perfectly still, breathing slowly. Face expressionless. Which one terrifies you more? The loud one reveals everything. His fear, his strategy, his breaking point. The silent one reveals nothing, and that is what makes him dangerous. Musashi understood something profound. In any confrontation, the person who loses emotional control first loses everything. Your opponent does not beat you, you beat yourself. Your anger clouds your judgment. Your fear limits your options. Your impatience reveals your weaknesses. Musashi trained himself to remain completely separate from these reactions, to observe them without being controlled by them. This was not natural talent. Musashi was not born calm. He was born in 1584 during one of the most violent periods in Japanese history. His father abandoned him. His uncle raised him in a world where strength meant survival. As a young man, Musashi was angry, impulsive, driven by ego. He won his first confrontation at age 13, not through mental control, but through raw aggression and luck. But raw aggression has limits, and Musashi discovered those limits the hard way. In his early 20s, he faced opponents who were faster, stronger, more experienced. He should have lost. He survived because he started to notice something. The fighters who beat him were not necessarily more skilled. They were calmer. They waited. They observed. They responded instead of reacting. And slowly, Musashi began to transform his entire approach to combat and to life. The first principle Musashi mastered was what modern psychology now calls emotional distancing. The ability to separate yourself from what you are feeling, to observe your internal reactions without being swept away by them. Think of it this way. Imagine you are standing on a riverbank watching the water flow past. That is observation. Now imagine you are in the river being carried by the current. That is reaction. Most people live their entire lives being carried by emotional currents they never learned to observe. Musashi trained himself to stand on the riverbank. When anger rose in his chest before a confrontation, he noticed it. He did not judge it. He did not fight it. He simply observed it, like watching clouds pass across the sky. And this observation created space between the stimulus and his response. In that space lived his power. A neuroscientist at Stanford University who has been studying emotional regulation for 15 years discovered something remarkable. When you simply label what you are feeling, when you say to yourself, "I am feeling angry right now," activity in the amygdala decreases significantly. The amygdala is your brain's alarm system. It triggers fight or flight responses. But the simple act of naming the emotion activates your prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of your brain. You shift from reactive mode to responsive mode. Musashi did not have brain scans, but he understood this principle through direct experience. Before every confrontation, he would pause. He would notice his heartbeat, notice his breathing, notice the tension in his shoulders, and in that noticing, the reactions would begin to calm. The storm inside would quiet, and from that quiet place, he could see clearly. But emotional distance alone was not enough. Musashi developed a second principle: anticipatory awareness, the ability to perceive your opponent's moves before he makes them by recognizing patterns. Every human being operates from patterns. Anger follows predictable paths. Fear limits choices in consistent ways. Impatience reveals the same weaknesses over and over. Musashi studied these patterns obsessively. He watched how angry fighters telegraphed their attacks through tension in their shoulders, how frightened opponents always protected the same side, how impatient fighters always rushed the same way. He cataloged these patterns in his mind, and then he waited for them to appear. In one famous confrontation, Musashi faced an opponent named Ganryu, one of the most feared swordsmen in Japan. Ganryu was known for his impossibly long blade and his aggressive style. Everyone expected a fierce battle, but Musashi did something strange. He arrived 3 hours late to the duel, deliberately. Ganryu waited on the beach, his irritation building with each passing minute. His students watched him pace, his jaw clenched, his movements became more agitated. When Musashi finally appeared, he could see everything he needed to know. Ganryu was no longer calm. His anger had taken control. Before they even crossed implements, Musashi had already won. The confrontation lasted less than 30 seconds. Ganryu attacked with fury. Musashi moved with precision. Fury is predictable, precision is not, and Ganryu could not adapt because his emotions had already decided his strategy. This is anticipatory awareness, recognizing that human behavior under pressure follows patterns. And once you see the pattern, you can respond to it before it fully manifests. Modern hostage negotiators use this exact principle. They are trained to listen not just to what someone says, but to the emotional patterns beneath the words. The escalation patterns, the de-escalation windows, the micro signals that reveal what someone will do next. You can apply this right now in your life. When someone starts to raise their voice at you, you are watching a pattern unfold. Raised voice leads to louder voice leads to saying things they will regret. If you respond with your own raised voice, you feed the pattern. But if you respond with calm, with silence, with a simple observation, you interrupt the pattern. You take away the fuel, and the fire begins to die. Now, you might be thinking, that sounds good in theory, but in the moment when someone is yelling at you, how do you stay calm? This is where Musashi's third principle becomes essential. Strategic breathing. Controlling every breath to control your emotional state. This is not mystical. This is biology. Your breath is the bridge between your conscious mind and your automatic nervous system. When you breathe quickly and shallowly, you activate your sympathetic nervous system, your fight-or-flight response. Your heart rate increases. Stress hormones flood your bloodstream. Your thinking narrows. You become reactive. But when you breathe slowly and deeply, you activate your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest response. Your heart rate slows. Stress hormones decrease. Your thinking expands. You become responsive. Musashi discovered this through direct experience. Before every confrontation, he would perform what he called breath meditation. He would slow his breathing deliberately. 4 counts in, hold for 4, 4 counts out, hold for 4. This pattern, which modern science now calls box breathing, literally changes your brain chemistry. A researcher studying behavioral neuroscience for 15 years found that controlled breathing like this increases activity in the prefrontal cortex while decreasing activity in the amygdala. You shift from alarm mode to assessment mode. But here is what makes this truly powerful. You can do this anywhere. In a meeting when your boss is criticizing you, in an argument with your partner when emotions are escalating, in traffic when someone cuts you off. The person who is yelling at you cannot control your breath. Only you can. And when you control your breath, you control your state. And when you control your state, you control your response. And when you control your response, you control the outcome. If you have made it this far, stay with me, because what I am about to share is the principle that ties everything together. The fourth and final strategy Musashi mastered: purposeful action. Acting with a clear, defined objective instead of fighting blindly. Most people in confrontation have no objective beyond winning or not losing. But winning is not an objective. It is an outcome. An objective is specific. It is actionable. It guides every decision. Before every confrontation, Musashi would clarify his objective. Not to humiliate his opponent. Not to prove his superiority. His objective was simply to end the confrontation with minimal harm to himself. Everything he did served that objective. When to arrive, where to stand, when to move, when to remain still. Every choice flowed from clarity of purpose, and that clarity prevented him from being swept away by the emotional storm that destroys most fighters. Compare this to how most people handle conflict. Someone insults you online. What is your objective? If you are honest, your objective is probably to hurt them back, to win the argument, to prove they are wrong. So you type an angry response. They respond with more anger. You escalate. They escalate. 2 hours later, you are still arguing with a stranger about something that does not matter, and you feel worse than when you started. But what if you had a clear objective? What if your objective was simply to protect your peace? Suddenly, your strategy becomes obvious. Do not engage. Do not feed the pattern. Observe the anger rising in you. Breathe, let it pass, and move on with your life. The person who is trying to provoke you loses their power the moment you refuse to be provoked. This is purposeful action. Clarity prevents chaos. Let me tell you about the most famous demonstration of these 4 principles working together. Musashi was challenged by a master swordsman named Hayato. Hayato had prepared for this confrontation for months. He was confident, skilled, ready. They agreed to meet at dawn on a remote beach. Hayato arrived early. He stretched, he meditated, he visualized his victory. Dawn came. Musashi did not appear. An hour passed. Hayato began to pace. 2 hours passed. Hayato was angry now. How dare Musashi disrespect him like this? 3 hours passed. Hayato was furious, humiliated in front of his students. Hayato was furious, humiliated in front of his students. Then Musashi appeared. He walked slowly up the beach. He carried a wooden oar he had carved on the boat ride over, not even a proper blade. Hayato exploded. He screamed insults. He demanded they start immediately. Musashi simply looked at him, calm, observing. He could see everything. Hayato's breathing was rapid. His shoulders were tense. His grip on his blade was too tight. His grip on his blade was too tight. Hayato had already defeated himself. The confrontation began. Hayato attacked with all his fury. Fast, aggressive, powerful, but predictable. Musashi moved once, a single strike with his wooden oar. The fight was over in less than 30 seconds. Hayato had fought with anger. Musashi had fought with clarity, and clarity always defeats chaos. Now let me show you how these principles apply to your life right now. Maybe you have a boss who yells at you in meetings. Every time it happens, you feel your chest tighten, your face gets hot, you want to yell back or you freeze completely. Neither response serves you. But what if you applied Musashi's principles? Emotional distance. You notice your chest tightening. You observe it like watching a cloud. You do not judge it, you do not fight it, you simply see it. And in that seeing, you create space. Anticipatory awareness. You recognize the pattern. Your boss yells when he is stressed about deadlines. This is not about you. This is his pattern. And patterns are predictable. Strategic breathing. You take a slow breath in, hold, slow breath out, hold, slow breath out, hold. Your nervous system begins to calm. Your thinking clears. Purposeful action. Your objective is not to win the argument or prove him wrong. Your objective is to do your job well and protect your peace. So you listen, you acknowledge, you offer solutions, and you do not take the bait. The yelling loses its power because you refuse to feed it with your reaction. Or maybe you are dealing with family conflict. Your sister makes a comment that always triggers you. In the past, you would snap back. Then she would snap back. And suddenly, you are in a fight that ruins the entire gathering. But what if you applied these principles? You notice the trigger. You observe the anger rising. You breathe. You remember your objective is to maintain family peace, not to win the argument. So you respond differently. You say something like, "I hear you," or "Thank you for sharing that," and you let it go. The pattern cannot continue if you refuse to feed it. Or maybe someone is trying to provoke you on social media. They leave an insulting comment. Your fingers are already typing a response. But stop. What is your objective? To change their mind? That will not happen. To hurt them back? That will only escalate. To protect your peace? Then do not engage. Observe the urge to respond. Breathe, let it pass, and move on with your day. The person who tried to provoke you gets nothing, and you keep your peace. That is victory. Let me be brutally honest with you now. The reason most people never master these principles is not because they are difficult. It is because they require something most people are unwilling to give. They require you to let go of your ego. Your ego wants to win every argument. Your ego wants to prove you are right. Your ego wants revenge when someone hurts you. But your ego is not your friend. Your ego is the thing that keeps you trapped in reactive patterns that destroy your peace. Musashi understood this deeply. He wrote in his book, The Book of Five Rings, that the warrior must become like water. Water does not fight. Water does not force. Water simply flows around obstacles. It takes the path of least resistance. And over time, water shapes stone. This is the ultimate lesson. You do not have to fight every battle. You do not have to respond to every provocation. You do not have to prove yourself to every person who doubts you. You simply have to maintain your clarity, your calm, your purpose. And time will prove you right. A psychology researcher who's been studying self-control for 20 years conducted a fascinating study. He found that people who practice emotional regulation, who can observe their feelings without being controlled by them, report significantly higher life satisfaction, better relationships, and greater career success than people with high IQ but low emotional control. Think about that. Your ability to manage your internal state is more predictive of success than your intelligence. This is what Musashi knew 400 years ago, and this is what modern science is now proving. So, how do you actually start? How do you begin to build these skills in your own life? Let me give you a practical path. First, start with breath awareness. Right now, as you are listening to this, notice your breathing. Do not change it yet. Just notice it. Is it fast or slow, shallow or deep? Where do you feel it in your body? This simple act of noticing is the beginning of emotional distance. You are observing instead of reacting. Second, practice the box breathing pattern every single day. 4 counts in, hold for 4, 4 counts out, hold for 4. Do this for 5 minutes every morning. This is not meditation. This is training your nervous system. You are teaching your body that you control the state. The state does not control you. Over time, this becomes automatic. In moments of stress, your body will remember this pattern. Third, start cataloging patterns. When does your boss get angry? What triggers your partner? What situations make you lose your cool? Write them down. Patterns become less powerful when you see them clearly. And once you see them, you can prepare responses instead of reactions. You are building your anticipatory awareness. Fourth, before any potentially difficult conversation, clarify your objective. Write it down if you need to. What do you actually want from this interaction? Not what your ego wants. What serves your purpose? This clarity will guide every word you say and every response you make. Purposeful action eliminates chaos. And here is the truth that no one wants to hear. You will fail at this, repeatedly. You will lose your temper. You will react instead of respond. You will forget to breathe. You will let your ego take control. This is not failure. This is practice. Musashi did not master these principles overnight. He spent decades refining them through direct experience, through mistakes, through confrontations where he barely survived. The path to mastery is paved with imperfect attempts. The Japanese have a concept called wabi-sabi, the acceptance of imperfection. Your practice will be imperfect, and that is exactly as it should be. But here is what will happen if you persist. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, you will notice changes. Someone yells at you and you do not feel that automatic chest tightening, or you feel it, but it passes more quickly. Someone tries to provoke you online and you notice the urge to respond, but you let it go without effort. Your partner says something triggering and instead of snapping back, you pause, you breathe, you respond from clarity instead of anger. These small victories accumulate, and over time, they transform who you are. You become the person in the room who does not need to raise their voice because everyone already listens. You become the person who can navigate conflict without losing their center. You become the person others come to when they need calm in the middle of chaos. This is not about becoming emotionless. This is about becoming sovereign over your emotions instead of being enslaved by them. Musashi lived to be 61 years old, remarkable for someone who spent his youth in life or life confrontations. In his final years, he retreated to a cave and wrote his teachings. He never lost a single confrontation, not because he was the fastest or the strongest, but because he mastered the one opponent that defeats most people, himself. His anger, his fear, his ego, and in mastering himself, he became unstoppable. This same mastery is available to you right now. You do not need a sword. You do not need to be in physical confrontations. You just need to recognize the truth. Every difficult conversation is a duel. Every moment of stress is a battle. Every moment of stress is a battle. Every provocation is a test. And the person who controls their mind controls the outcome. Always. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most dangerous. The calmest person is, because calm is clarity. And clarity is power. Before I close, I want to invite you to take action on what you have learned today. Subscribe to this channel, leave a like on this content, and tell me in the comments, what is the one situation in your life where you most need to apply these principles? What confrontation, what relationship, what challenge requires you to master your mind? Share it. Because naming it is the first step to mastering it. Musashi was not born with special abilities. He was not gifted with supernatural calm. He was born angry and impulsive just like everyone else. But he made a choice. He chose to master himself. And that choice changed everything. You have the same choice right now, the same 4 principles: emotional distance, anticipatory awareness, strategic breathing, purposeful action. They work for confrontations with swords. They work for confrontations with words. They work for the battles you face every single day. The only question is, will you practice them? Or will you remain trapped in reactive patterns that steal your peace and limit your power? The choice, as it always has been, is yours.